Yeah.
You have done master in cinematography, so can you tell me why you choose that course?
So I actually started doing a bachelor degree in electronic media. And I started doing that because my mother was at that point running a business in new media, which is like, VoIP and things like that. So she was like, why don't you take over my business? And why don't you study media for that? And I actually wanted to study psychology. I didn't want to study media at all. But when I started studying media, and it's a bunch of random things that came together to make me this very random person, because my boyfriend at the time was doing a photography course that I just wanted to spend time with him. I just literally said, I want to spend time with you, and did a photography course with him. He ended up becoming an architect, and I ended up taking photography more seriously. The media course taught me a lot more about photography, a lot more about the way film cameras work, digital cameras work, tape cameras. We studied the basics of how technology in media works, basically. And we had a thesis to do. I fought with my college and said, no, I will only do the thesis in film. I didn't want to do it in multimedia and like, making graphics and stuff. I just find my calling in that. And while doing that, I was doing my thesis on Midnight in Paris by Woody Allen. Super, it's it's a great film, but not the best film to do a thesis on. But we had a small pool to choose from, so I did it on that. And while uh, watching the film, I was very, very drawn to the lighting of the film. And I found myself thinking, oh, there is a clear art to this kind of lighting, and I want to study that art. And I then went to, kind of inquired what was around. And FTI was obviously the first option that came up. It was a difficult year when I was applying for FTI because I think they had a 0 year right before that. So a lot of people applied. I clearly didn't get through to FTI, but then I got through to a film school in Chennai where I was living called LB Prasad. And yeah, that's kind of how I stumbled upon cinematography. I kind of stumbled upon it. Yeah.
Ma'am, then you have worked in as a cinematographer, and then you did your masters in direction in USA. How that happened?
Yeah. So after I finished my master's in cinematography, I really needed money, and realized that it was not very easy to make money as a cinematographer. So my friends and I started a wedding film company and wedding photography company. Uh, 3 साल के बाद I was quite tired with weddings because they can be it's kind of the same thing over and over again. I really enjoy it, but like that it is kind of the same thing over and over again. And when I started looking out for work, I was feeling more drawn to documentary. And I was not really able to find anybody in my surroundings, at least, or through people I knew who was doing the kind of work I wanted to do. So I did a couple of short films in Chennai, but then I decided I think I may need to learn how to tell these stories myself. And so I applied abroad, and I was not really liking what I was seeing in India in general. Like that was just my opinion. Sorry. So I applied to this film school in the US and got through. And yeah, then decided I was going to be a director and direct films. Yeah.
Ma'am, how the idea came for crowdfunding, if I'm correct? It was crowdfunding, and
Yeah,
there was trolling, I guess, also. No?
massively.
Okay, so can you talk about that?
Mm, yeah. So of course, I had all these lofty dreams that I wanted to go study direction and become a big director and all of these things, but I had no means to do it. We were in a bad financial situation at home, and I didn't feel like I couldn't ask my parents because I knew that there was nothing there that I could. ask them for, and it kind of like came down to the thing of either I completely let this dream go or I give it one last shot. And I started my uncle actually told me that why don't you start a crowdfunding a thing within your friends and family? Like if your, family members, each family puts in about 60K, you can at least get one semester, kind of covered for. And so I started it for friends and family and I put it on Facebook. And it was only for like a small audience, really. I didn't want it to like, I, I didn't have the kind of like confidence to pitch to the rest of the world, really. Um, but it so happened that somebody came across it on Twitter, and I've never been much on Twitter, but somebody came across it and called it the urban poor version of begging. And it got really popular at that point, this thought, because only one other girl had done it before, and she had done it for social studies. So nobody had done it nobody had crowdfunded their studies for an art practice before. And by the face of it, I think I looked like a girl from upper class, upper middle class family who could afford it and who maybe didn't want to take risks, didn't want to, ask her parents. She wanted a fully funded holiday, is how I was portrayed. It was really bizarre because people were telling me things like she's wearing silver earrings, so clearly she has money. Uh, and very fast. I mean, that's the thing with trolling women on the internet, which, kind of goes, if it's unregulated or nobody stops it, it can go very fast into sexual harassment. And that's kind of what happened. And it was happening to me through people that I even knew, who thought that they knew my life, and they were suddenly an authority on my life. And yeah, people are saying all kinds of things, all kinds of nasty things, saying, you know what women do on the internet for money, so why don't you go do that? Why don't you do sexual favors for money? And like, unsolicited. I hadn't forced anybody to, send me money. I just said I wanted to do this. You want to help me? Help me. If you don't want to help me, move on. You know, yeah, you want to have social commentary about everything that's happening in the world. That's fine. Everybody is given that space. But just to know that there is somebody else on that side of the screen, and I think that's like the boon and bane of social media. Everybody wants to have an opinion on things, but when it comes to really owning up to your actions, nobody wants to do it. Because the guy who then started the whole sort of thing that happened, he then eventually became like, oh, I'm a nobody. Like, why are you attacking me? Yeah. So that's what it was. But it's kind of what helped also, which is why it's a boon and bane, right? Social media. Because even though I got like trolled very massively. An intern from a newspaper, an online newspaper, picked it up and called me, and she, had a conversation with me. And funnily enough, at that moment when she called me, I was being stalked mercilessly. And I was meeting the parents of the man who was stalking me. So it was a high pressure situation. I didn't think anything was going to happen with this newspaper article, but it literally changed my life. That one newspaper article, like, yeah, kind of changed the trajectory of my life, because I woke up the next morning and I had about $5,000 in my fund till then. I woke up the next morning and it was 12,000, and I felt like I was dreaming. And then by the end of the week, it was $28,000, and I could go to the US. Like, it was crazy. Yeah, it was crazy.
Great, ma'am. Ma'am, as you have said that there are really difficulties when you want to become a cinematographer and director as a living as well. So, can you tell what difficulties you may have faced?
Um, See, I won't say that I, had many difficulties finding work, because like I said, I started with weddings, and, it was just the age when everybody was getting married. I don't think it was easy to find work in the kind of work I wanted to do, which was not commercial. I didn't want to do meaningless commercial work, even to assist, you know. Um, uh, and obviously, there is this factor of being a woman and being discriminated against, um, and being told all kinds of things, even when you want to go on set and assist. So, and that has sort of, it's become better, I would say. It is easier to be a woman filmmaker right now. There are many more of us, even cinematographers. There are, I would say easily there are 150 to 170 of us. Um, but it's still not an easy game. It's still a boys' club in many ways. Like if, for example, if one man is not available to take up a shoot, he's most often going to call one of his male friends to take up that same shoot. So to break into that circle, especially in a city like Bombay, has been hard because they also have years of friendship. They have years of, camaraderie. They've worked together. On the same end, I may be as qualified, may have as much experience. Um, so that works in the fact that I don't know as many people here. So networking is always like a deal in Bombay, and also the fact that you're a woman and there's just not as much trust in your work as much as there's a in a man's work. Um, as a cinematographer specifically, as a director, I feel like things are opening up a little more, in fact. But as a cinematographer, there is still this thing that it's a man's job, like just leave it to the men.
Is there a pay disparity as well for men and women with same experience? You can say.
Yeah, there is. Anybody who says there isn't is lying or doesn't know the truth. Yeah, it exists.
Ma'am, you have done direction and cinematography, so can you tell the major difference between director and a cinematographer?
Oh, I mean, okay, interesting. This could be an interesting question because I think depends on what kind of filmmaking you're looking at also. I think in fiction or like narrative storytelling, the director is in complete control of what is on camera, what is being, it's the director's mind that has sort of been visualized by everybody who is there, the production designer, the cinematographer. In fiction, the cinematographer is working in service of the story always. Um, Exploration is more by the director in fiction, in my opinion. Uh, in documentary, which is also something that I do quite often, there is an exploration both by the director and cinematographer, but I feel in documentary, the cinematographer has more control of the vision of what is being shown on camera because it's an exploration. You're finding things as you are going. Most often, you are finding things as you're going. So I feel like a cinematographer is in some sense more in control of what is on camera than the director is when it comes to documentary. So yeah, it's mainly about that. To me, this is my perspective. I like being in control of the story. I like having a say. So which is why I kind of dabble between direction and cinematography in both narrative and fiction, narrative and non-fiction, because I think that there is interesting elements in all through, all these things. Yeah.
Ma'am, you have worked with US crew and Indian crew, so do you find any difference between the work ethic, anything like that?
Yeah. It's really interesting because I'm shooting a film next week, and the director is from the US. She studied in the US. My assistant cinematographer is from the US, and we have decided that we will try and work in the American system in India, which is barely done. I just did another short film where the director was from the US again, and she was quite flabbergasted that so much goes into the same work in India, so many people and manpower that goes into the same work in India as compared to in the US. A short film can be made with about 15, 20 people um, at max, 15, 20 people at max in the US. But here, the same kind of short film will be made by 75 people. So the idea that, the AD position then becomes a very managerial position, even though it is a managerial position in the US also. In India, it becomes even so like handling manpower becomes like a real large job. And there are, I mean, both systems are different. There are there is a certain lingo in the camera department specifically and in the director department that is different in the US, different in India. There is a certain workflow to things that is maybe more ironed out in the US. And those of us who have worked in other countries are trying to like bring some kind of, order and regulation into this to make sure that, we are not extending over, say, an 8 hour shoot or a 10-hour shoot. And we are sort of bringing it down and keeping it at where it's supposed to be. Or like if we are going over, to either ask everybody on set or to even, compensate everybody on set. That is the ideal way to do it. So yeah, I mean, it's an ongoing process. I feel like we've all been working on it for a very long time, and hopefully it will come to fruition soon.
Okay. You have made a short film called Davat. So how the idea came and what was the experience, ma'am, while shooting it? You have directed it.
Davat is a very interesting film. It was the first film I was actually commissioned to make as a director in the US. Um, the film was not my idea. Like, I didn't write the script. The script was written by the producer, who was a first time producer, and she wanted a director who'd done some more work to, lead the ship, so to say. Uh, I was living in the US trying to assimilate to the sort of Desi community there, the South Asian community there. But Dawat was particularly interesting because it was in a film entirely in Bengali, and I don't speak Bangla. Uh, and I had to direct a film entirely in Bengali, which was, of course, a very interesting experience and an experience that kind of like was a glimpse into a world that, I'm not from entirely. But the story was still so universal, and the story was, I don't know if you've watched it, but Dawat is about this girl from a Bengali American family from Jamaica, Queens in New York. She really wants to go and study in California. She wants to go study film in California. And it's about her family sort of not allowing that, but how she navigates that. And there's no sort of conclusion to the film because I think also when it comes to family discomfort in a family or like disagreements in a family, it never really gets fully solved, in my opinion. It just kind of fades away or like bruise at the surface, and that's kind of what the film is about. Like when you have a disagreement with your family, you just you learn how to work around it because you still have to live together, you still love each other. So I think eventually that's what the film is about, and I think that's a feeling that's universal. And of course, there is a story of this girl wanting to go to film school and her family not agreeing to it. So, like, in many ways, that was my story as well. Where, when I wanted to crowdfund my studies, my family was very against it. Uh, my a brother has said, why do you need to do these things? We all had dreams, we all gave up our dreams. Just give up your dream, take a job. And that's exactly what her mother tells her in the film. Her mother says, you will take a teaching job. You will work as a teacher. That is a noble profession. And she says, no, I want to study film. So in many ways, the story resonated with me, and I think that's why the producer was like, "Yeah, I think you're the right person to tell the story." But yeah, it was quite an out of body experience to be in like a foreign country, directing a film in a language that I didn't know at all. Yeah, or like knew barely. And now I've done another film in Bangla also, so it's my second film in Bangla. Yeah. I think I just need to learn Bangla now.
Yeah. Ma'am, as a filmmaker, what can somebody learn while shooting a short film?
Oh, that's a broad question. Everything. I mean, a short film is a short version of a long film, right? So, can you tell me a little more about like what you mean exactly?
Ma'am, there are short films by Paul Thomas Anderson. Like he made a short film, then he made a long film with the same story. Like, did you had that in your mind that you want to tell the story in long format as well?
Like I said, that was Davat was not my sort of story. I'm yet to write and direct something that is my own. Uh, I have an idea for short and for the future, but one gets caught up in the ideas of quantity over quality in a city like Bombay. So I think I'm still stuck in that, and I haven't gotten down to writing my own film yet. But yeah, I mean, when it comes to filmmakers who are like starting out, it is a road that people have taken, which is that you make a short film and use the short film to be known as a director, be known as someone with a distinctive voice, and use that to find a producer, find grants, find shop your story around. Um, so it is something that is it's done as a sort of a means to an end. Yeah.
Ma'am, then you have directed Conversion Courage is a Crisis, a documentary. So, what was the experience, ma'am, while doing that?
Convergence, I co-directed in the sense that I directed and shot the and did sound for the the India portion of the story. Uh, we were shooting in the peak of the pandemic. It is a story about it's 8 stories from across the world, uh, all during the first wave of the pandemic, and the kind of resilience everybody has shown through and through. That's kind of what the story is about. So my particular story was interesting because it's it was about a woman who was in the last 3 months of a pregnancy, of a high risk pregnancy at a high risk time. The pregnancy was high risk for other reasons, like it was not because of the pandemic, but the pandemic sort of exacerbated the entire situation. And she it's basically a story, like my part of it was following her high risk pregnancy till the time she gave birth, and we filmed the birth as well. We went into the operation theater, and it was a cesarean, and we filmed the birth as well, which was like, I mean, I think Convergence was such a crazy experience for me because I was in a kind of a bio bubble. I could only meet 2 or 3 people for like those few months. I had to be ready at any time because at any time she could go into labor, right? That's the way that pregnancies work. So I had to be in Delhi, ready, in this time where most of the city was like at home. I had to be ready to sort of travel across from one part of the city to another part of the city, and film with this couple and this family who were trying to have a baby at this crazy time. Uh, it was also intense experience because of the world. Delhi, particularly, was so badly affected. There were so many, like, there were no hospital rooms, and she was in one of the most high risk hospitals, Max. Um and just that whole tension that at any time you could get COVID, and maybe you would infect the family. So I had to be in PPE while shooting entirely, and I'm directing, shooting, and doing sound, right? Like So I'm wearing like, if you see the pictures of me, I look crazy in the hospital. And I had to, the whole procedure, like the risk procedure was so intricate and so well done also by Netflix, because they ensured that, after every shoot day, I had to wipe down the entire camera, all the mics, and put them into like vacuum sealed bags. So every day after coming back, after copying the cards, after doing all of that work, this would be sort of like the next thing that would happen. And in those vacuum sealed Ziploc bags, I would give it to the character. She would mic herself. I would have to teach her. I would have to be wearing a double mask. I couldn't even have water in their house. I was not allowed to even have water in their house. I had to carry everything with myself. And of course, when she went into labor, it was at odd time. I had just come back at 10 p.m. from her house after meeting them and after filming with them. And after filming with them, I go back home. I've just gone to bed, and I get a call at 2 a.m. saying she's gone into labor. So again, I have packed everything, and I have been in the hospital with her for over 24 hours. And it was crazy because, like, you don't, the idea of rest when it comes to like pregnancy is just non-existent, right? I had to be filming with her continuously, um, and sort of charge through till the delivery time. And at the delivery time also, like, it was crazy. The doctor first said, of course, agreed to everything, but then very last minute said, you cannot shoot the delivery. But then 15 seconds before the baby was born, or before she pulled the baby out, she said, if you want to shoot, right now is your time. And, I've kind of darted across the operation theater in full scrubs, PPE, two levels of like plastic on me with a camera, and got the shot. And, I think 2 hours after that, when I watched what we had gotten, I just burst into tears because it was just overall such an overwhelming experience. Um, yeah, it was very overwhelming experience, and to see life coming into Earth, I think it's special. It's special. Yeah.
Yes, yes. Ma'am, what are your thoughts on Indian documentary filmmakers and films?
Indian documentary, sorry.
Indian documentary filmmakers and Indian documentary films. Like we had a case like a screening was being shown of Ram Ke Naam and they got arrested. Three people got arrested.
I mean, that is unconstitutional, because that film won the national award. So there is absolutely no reason why that should have been, why that should have happened. And this, I mean, you're also taking a risk. I feel like by even talking about this on your podcast, because we know the situation of the country right now. We know the sensitive times we are living in. We know where our freedom of speech lies, where our, but also we know where our fundamental duties and responsibilities sort of lie, right? Um, and I think that the role of documentary filmmakers at this time is more important than ever, because we're seeing a time of heavy censoring. Uh, we're seeing a time of heavy censoring, not only in documentaries, in fiction filming also. We've seen films being, pulled down for hurting religious sentiments, uh, time and time again in the last 8 years. So, I don't know what to say. It's such a tricky time to be a filmmaker, but I think with that being said, this is the time to be a filmmaker also. Like, this is the time we need to soldier on, and this is the time that we need to be believing in ourselves more than ever also, and believing in where the truth lies. There's enough stuff to make us believe that there's enough media out there that is, trying to make us believe in other things. But it's our responsibility to be discerning and to make the right kind of choices when it comes to work, when it comes to, people that we associate with. And we've all been burnt. We've all had, like, at least I've been burnt. I have taken up projects which, turned out to be something that I completely didn't want to do. And there is so much of this around, like, and especially in the economy that we're working at, everybody wants to take up work more than often, especially if you're living in a city like Bombay, where, the expenses are super high. So you want to be continuously working, but making decisions on what kind of work you're taking up is important because, yeah, I mean, your name otherwise being associated with things that don't align with you is happening more than ever. Like, I'm seeing it happen all around me. Um, it's become much more nuanced. The Like, you can't really tell. I don't know whether I'm being too ambiguous, but you can't really tell right from wrong very easily, you know. So it's just our responsibility as documentary filmmakers, as filmmakers, to realize that this responsibility sort of lies with us and to make the right decisions. Yeah.
Currently, you are working in any project, ma'am?
I am.
In India or in USA, ma'am?
Right now in India, I cannot speak about one because I've signed an NDA. I am working on one project about, it's a documentary about female Kabirwani singers, and I don't know, I'm not sure if you know, but there are very few in the world, in India, who sing Kabirwani, even though uh, it is most often sung from the point of view of a woman. Women are often, like, not given the space to practice their art because they get caught up in the idea of marriage and family and all of that. So it's about three women who are sort of reclaiming that space in Madhya Pradesh. And yeah, we're going into our first shoot next week, so excited. Yeah, and I'm doing a couple of short films and very feminist short films. I just finished one very feminist short film, and I have one more very feminist short film coming up. Yeah.